Silence. Not the silence before a fight where the air is thick with anticipation, but the kind of silence that arrives after a hurricane has finally stopped screaming, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. On one side of our collective memory, we see a young Mike Tyson. He is snarling behind a white towel, his eyes burning with a predatory certainty. He is a human war machine, forged in the fires of fear and designed for a single purpose: destruction. On the other side of memory, we see something that doesn't seem to belong to the same timeline. An old man in a gray hoodie standing on a rooftop in Brooklyn. He is scattering seeds for a flock of pigeons. He is smiling. It is a soft smile. A smile the world swore he was incapable of possessing. Two images. One life, the killer and the keeper. The contrast is almost unbelievable. It feels like a glitch in the simulation. And yet, when you look closely at the scars on his soul, you realize it is the only ending that ever made sense. Because to find peace, the monster had to die. Mike Tyson once chased immortality through violence. He believed that fear was the same thing as respect. He believed that domination was the only language of love. But life taught him a different scripture, a harder lesson. He spent the first half of his life trying to be God. He spent the second half learning how to be human. This is not a comeback story. This is not a sports story. It isn't even a redemption arc in the traditional sense, because redemption implies he fixed what was broken. He didn't fix it. He outgrew it. This is the autopsy of a myth, and the quiet rebirth of a man. The knockout that mattered most in Mike Tyson's life was not delivered in a ring in Las Vegas. It wasn't thrown by Buster Douglas or Lennox Lewis. It was delivered by life itself, by grief, by truth, by the chemical dissolution of his own ego, by the simple, terrifying act of sitting alone in a room and liking the person who sat there with him. The man the world feared is gone, but in his place stands someone the world never expected. A philosopher, a grandfather, a teacher of pain and peace, an elder who survived his own legend. Welcome to the final chapter. Mike Tyson, The Resurrection. This is the story of how a monster learned to become a man. The years are 2005 to 2009. The fight is officially over. The gloves are hung up. But the war inside him has simply moved to a new battlefield. The cameras fade, the stadiums go dark, and Mike Tyson, once a sculpted weapon of iron and muscle, begins to decay in plain sight. The public remembers him as a myth, frozen in time on highlight reels. But behind closed doors, the reality is grotesque. He is a 300-pound ghost. His bloodstream is a toxic cocktail of cocaine and alcohol. His lungs are filled with smoke and regret. And behind every joke he cracks, there is a deep, suffocating self-loathing. He wanders the world as a caricature of himself. Hollywood calls. But they don't want the champion. They want the punchline. They cast him in movies like The Hangover to play the crazy Mike Tyson character. A symbol of chaotic, unhinged masculinity played for laughs. Audiences in movie theaters laugh with him. But Mike is not laughing. He watches his own performance on the screen like a stranger looking at a corpse. He sees a clown dancing for the amusement of the people who used to fear him. He has everything a man could want: fame, infamy, legend, but he feels worthless. He drinks to forget the name Mike Tyson. He snorts to numb the memories of Cus D'Amato. He binges on food to fill a hole that no championship belt could ever cover. He avoids mirrors, because when he looks in the mirror, he doesn't see a Hall of Famer. He sees a failure. He sees a funeral waiting to happen. A close friend from that era recalls, Mike didn't need enemies anymore. He was his own assassin. He wanted to die, but he was too scared to pull the trigger, so he tried to do it slowly. Tyson admits it himself later, in moments of brutal honesty. I hated myself. I didn't feel worthy of breathing the same air as my children. I was a piece of garbage wrapped in gold. He wanders the casinos of Las Vegas like a phantom, searching for punishment, not pleasure. People stop him for photos, they smile, they put up their fists. But they don't look him in the eye, they don't see a person. They see a tourist attraction. They see a tiger in a zoo, toothless and fat. He realizes the terrifying truth. The world didn't love Mike Tyson. They loved the monster he pretended to be. And now that the monster was tired, they just wanted to poke it with a stick. Outside, the crowds still roar his name. But inside the hotel room in the dead of night, he whispers to the ceiling, I am done. He has millions of stories, but he cannot find one single reason to live. This is not rock bottom. This is free fall. And then, life does what the ring could not. It strikes him with a blow no opponent ever could. The descent reaches its absolute floor not in a stadium, but in a sterile white room. The tragedy that will change everything is waiting on the other side of a phone call. Phoenix, Arizona, 2009. Mike Tyson receives the call that every parent prays they never hear. The call that splits time into before and after. His 4-year-old daughter, Exodus, has suffered a freak accident. A cord from a treadmill. A moment of unsupervised silence in a playroom. She is unconscious. She is on life support. Tyson is in Las Vegas. He flies to Phoenix. There are no cameras. There is no entourage. There is no Iron Mike. There is just a father sprinting through the corridors of a hospital, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He enters the pediatric emergency ward, the smell of antiseptic, the beeping of machines. And in that moment, the entire mythology of the baddest man on the planet evaporates. It means nothing. His knockout power? Useless. His hundreds of millions of dollars? Worthless. His intimidation? It has no effect on death. He stands over his little girl. He holds her hand, and he realizes he is powerless. Doctors try. Machines breathe for her. But it is not enough. Within hours, they deliver the verdict he cannot block, dodge, or punch his way past. His daughter is gone. There is no referee count. There is no bell to save him. Only the quiet, earth-shattering collapse of a man's universe. Tyson says later, his voice trembling, When she died, the tough guy died with her. I looked at myself and said, You big bad monster. You can't do anything. You can't save your baby. The world would later spend years analyzing his ear bite, his street fights, his rage. But this was the real breaking point. This was the moment when Mike Tyson finally understood that anger cannot protect you. Rage cannot resurrect the dead. Being feared does not keep you safe. He tries to bargain with God. He tries to trade his life for hers. But no deal is available. He disappears from public view. He sits in dark rooms. He cannot speak. Later he admits, I didn't want to live anymore. I was ready to go. I had the gun, I had the drugs, I was ready. People assume his rock bottom was bankruptcy, or prison, or the Lennox Lewis defeat. They were wrong. This was the bottom. Not because it was punishment, but because it was clarity. Exodus's death stripped him bare. The fighter died in that hospital room. The persona died. The myth died. And in the ashes of that grief, Mike Tyson finally admitted that the life he built had been nothing but armor. There is no redemption yet, only ashes. But sometimes, the ground must swallow a man whole before he can learn how to grow again. Something unexpected happens in the years after Exodus passes. Mike Tyson does not return to violence. He does not return to the chaos. Instead, he turns toward something unfamiliar. He turns toward the unknown. He meets Kiki, the woman who will become his wife. She doesn't worship Iron Mike. She challenges him. She introduces stability, boundaries, and a concept foreign to him, being cared for without a price tag. But Tyson is still trapped inside the shell of the monster. The trauma is deep in his wiring. Then a friend tells him about something called the toad. The smoking of 5-MeO-DMT, the venom of the Sonoran desert toad, one of the most potent psychedelic experiences known to the human species. A doorway, he is told, to confront the self. Tyson tries it. He inhales. And for the first time since he was a child, Mike Tyson dies. Not physically, but spiritually. He later describes the experience with awe. I evaporated. The room dissolved. The colors exploded, and I saw that Iron Mike never existed. He was just a shell. He was a mask I wore so nobody would kill me. The toad ripped open the scaffolding of a lifetime. He screams. He cries. He dissolves into the universe. In that space, there is no championship belt. There is no predator. There is no baddest man alive. There is only a wounded soul floating at a place without fear, a place without ego. It shows him something terrifying and beautiful. He had never been Mike Tyson. He had only been defending him. The monster was a costume. The fighter was a survival response. The violence was a language he learned to speak because he was trembling. Underneath it all was a scared child holding up a shield that was too heavy to carry anymore. The toad kills that identity. It dissolves the myth into light, and Mike Tyson wakes up feeling something he has not felt since his mother held him as a baby. Safety, he says later. My whole life, I thought I had to be a killer to survive. The medicine showed me. I could just be. I am enough. The ego death becomes a rebirth. Tyson begins meditating. He starts studying philosophy. He reads ancient texts about stoicism and surrender. He cries often in interviews, not out of sorrow, but out of release, the tears of a man who has finally put down a heavy burden. For the first time in 5 decades, Mike Tyson is not preparing for war. He is preparing for life. And while the world laughs at New Age Mike or Hippie Mike, they don't realize they are witnessing one of the most radical transformations in modern celebrity history. The monster died, so the man could breathe. Tyson is no longer the monster the world remembers, but life, ironically, hands him one last arena. Not to destroy, but to demonstrate survival. Years pass. He meditates, he raises his children, he rescues pigeons, he teaches himself softness. Then, November 2020, Mike Tyson, at 54 years old, steps back into a boxing ring for an exhibition with Roy Jones Jr. The internet snickers. They call it senior citizen boxing. They call it a cash grab. But the people laughing did not understand what was happening. This was not a return to the sport. It was a rite of passage. A warrior walking back to the battlefield not to conquer it, but to honor the fire that forged him. Tyson walks out. He is not snarling. He is not wearing a towel to hide his face. He is smiling. The bell rings. He doesn't hunt, he performs, he dances. He gives the world a glimpse of the art that he mastered. For the first time in history, Mike Tyson fights without hatred in his heart. After the match, breathing heavy, he says, "I needed this. Fighting is what kept me alive, but I'm not fighting people anymore. I'm fighting myself, and I'm winning." Then, in 2024, the final curtain call. A new generation arrives. A YouTuber named Jake Paul challenges the old king. The world mocks the idea. They say it is a circus, but Tyson accepts. Not because he wants to prove he is still the killer, but because he wants to prove he is still present. Jake Paul is not his enemy. Aging is. The fear of withering away is. Tyson's heart rate spikes, not from rage, but from gratitude that his body can still move. This fight is not about winning. It is about standing tall. Jake Paul becomes irrelevant. The result becomes irrelevant. What matters is that millions of people see Mike Tyson walk toward something he once used to run from: life. This is not the killer returning. It is the elder demonstrating that transformation is possible. In Tyson's words, "I'm not who I was, but I refuse to disappear." He didn't fight to conquer the world. He fought to prove that he finally belonged in it. This is Tyson's final miracle. He enters the ring not as Iron Mike, not as the baddest man alive, but as a man who survived himself. A man who once felt loved only by fear discovers that the truest love is the kind that asks for nothing. Pigeons. They were there before Customato, before the belts, before the prisons, before the chaos. They were the first creatures Mike Tyson ever cared about, and they were the only ones that never betrayed him. Millions saw his obsession as strange. Tyson saw it as sanctuary. "When everyone left me," he says, "they were still there. They didn't care if I was champion or a convict. They just wanted to be fed." The world thinks greatness is found in the noise of the crowd. Tyson learns it is found in the stillness of the coop. He feeds them at sunrise. He watches the flutter of wings against the Brooklyn sky as if it were a form of prayer. Children stop on the street to watch him. They don't know who he is. They don't know about the knockouts or the biting or the prison sentence. They just see an old man with a gentle face. And for the first time, he is grateful for the anonymity. Nobody fears him here. Nobody worships him. Nobody demands a piece of his soul. They just eat. And in the pulse of wings and the quiet wind, Tyson finds the simplest truth of all. What he chased his whole life was safety, not victory, not dominance, not fame. Safety. The feeling he now finds in birds so light they could be blown away by a gust of wind. He speaks differently now. Not like a fighter, like a philosopher. He tells audiences, if you don't confront your demons, they become your landlords. They live in your head and charge you rent. He says, ego is an illusion. The monster was never real. He was just a scared little boy. He laughs when people ask if he misses the ring. He says, I don't miss who I had to be to live there. Sometimes he cries on stage, not from pain, but from recognition. He recognizes that he survived what most people never escape, their own story. The pigeons become more than animals. They are a metaphor. They represent innocence, peace, childhood, and unconditional presence. Tyson, the old man with the tribal tattoo on his face, feeds them with reverence, like someone tending to the remains of his own soul. He has become what he never expected, a wise elder in a world that once feared him. He learned that the measure of a man is not how many people he can hurt. It is how many people he can help heal. And as the feathers lift into the air, Mike Tyson smiles. The god of war is gone. In his place stands the pigeon keeper, a man who finally learned that the greatest power in the world is tenderness. History has a way of worshiping the myth and forgetting the man beneath it. Mike Tyson lived both and survived both. He began as the boy, abandoned, frightened, invisible in the slums of Brownsville. He became the beast, weaponized by mentors, marketed by promoters, consumed by crowds who mistook his fear for respect. He transformed into the prisoner, first in a cell of steel, then in a cell of fame, then in the cell of his own mind, and now, finally, he stands as the man, not flawless, not cured, but aware. His voice today carries no menace, only the gravity earned through decades of pain. He looks at the camera and says, "Fame is a monster. It gives you everything, just so you can learn that you needed nothing." He doesn't care about belts anymore. He cares about balance. He talks less about glory and more about surrender. He tells us humility is the only victory that lasts. His legacy is not a boxing record, it is a warning and a revelation. The warning: be careful what identity you build. It may become your prison. The revelation: peace isn't found in conquest, it is found in acceptance. The irony of Mike Tyson's life is the paradox of fame itself. The world made him a god so it could watch that god fall, only for him to rise again as something the world never expected. A human being. He feeds pigeons now on rooftops in Brooklyn, the same place where a scared fat boy once looked to the sky for something that didn't hurt him. The difference is, he no longer looks up in longing. He looks up in gratitude. We linger on this final image. Mike Tyson sits on a wooden bench. The sun is setting. Birds land on his shoulders. No entourage, no violence, no fear. Just a man who finally made peace with the parts of himself he once tried to kill. Fade to black. A whisper echoes in the dark. He spent the first half of his life trying to be God. He spent the second half learning how to be human.